Alright everyone, Next is here, and I've been getting asked a few questions. What about rear flushing some speakers onto the rear doors on your Grand Prix? You know, is it easy, is it hard, what's involved? Having done this before in other cars, I've done it on a Grand Am, I've done Cavalier, Sunfire, a few other different cars. I work a lot of domestics, although I've done some imports as well. So if you have any questions about imports, make sure you ask. Anyways, but this one's a little bit trickier, and I'll show you why. So let's look at the flush mounts I've done on the front. All right. Now, excuse the condition of the car. It's getting fall. Got some leaves in there, so it is what it is. Now, when you look over here and you look at the way the frame is, obviously because this came with a speaker here, right? And all I did was I took the speaker out, cut the frame, put a steel frame in the back, and then mounted this on there. And it's good. It's sturdy. It's not going anywhere. But you can see the way this comes out, it's very, very kind of form and flush, right? It's smooth. So it's an easy, good mounting surface, right? Now when we look at the back, obviously there was no speaker here. So when it comes out, I don't know if I can show you guys this, there's a curve right over here. So the problem with the curve is that unless you're installing something small, like a 4-inch speaker or something like that, and you put it there, then it's not gonna mount properly. You put the 6-inch speaker, it's gonna kind of sit weird, and you mount it, it's gonna twist, and then eventually it's gonna fall out. Trust me on this, I know about that. It will fall out if you mount because of the way this kind of smooths over. And if anyone owning Grand Prix, take a look, you'll know exactly what I mean when you feel here. It doesn't come straight out at like a 90 degree like at the front. It kind of folds down and inward. So putting the speaker there, it's possible, but it's not going to mount properly. The second thing is I look in the back, and there is some of the wiring that runs in here, runs in for all, the switching and everything runs in and runs up. So you don't have a lot of room to play with. You only have about there, so which can fit a 6-inch speaker, but it only gives you, because it's so thin on this side, it's thin right over here, it only gives you a little bit of room to work with. You can only put a thin mount, a speaker with a thin magnet over here when you flush mount it. You can't go with a bigger magnet, like for example what I have in the front with those Pioneers. You can't do that, right? You have to go with a thin magnet when you're putting it here. So there's not a lot to cut through. Luckily, I looked in the back. It's just some, a little bit of material, not a lot to go with. But so it is possible, but it's not going to go as well as you want. The good and the bad of it is they have a boot here, which is the best place to run your wire through, but it's a sealed boot. Right, so you have to pull this out, and there's going to be like a little bit of a plug inside there that connects all the wiring. This is the wiring for the switch and so on. So you'd have to look at that as well. You can run the wire through. You may have to drill, like you take the boot out, and then you have to drill a little hole to just feed the wire through. If you guys decide to do it, don't make this wire too tense. Make sure you leave some play in here, so when the door moves, the wire can bend. Of course, the boot will keep it nice and safe as long as you don't leave too much play at the same time. But make sure you don't just make it, fit there. You have to make sure you leave some excess, so when the door moves, there's going to be some play in the wire. And then be prepared that you'll have to run through here, run it down, and connect it into your you can connect it into the monsoon amp, but I definitely do not recommend that. I recommend running a separate amp, small low power amp, to run these speakers if you decide to do it. It won't take much, especially if you're installing a system or anything like that. Install a separate smaller amp and run the rear speakers off of that. It'll be a much easier setup, and it'll be cleaner. And then you just hook it into your either your existing system, or you run it off your RCAs if you get to put an aftermarket deck, which I hope you're doing. And you just go from there. So the question, of course, is mounting it up here. If you're putting like tweeters or a small 4-inch speaker or something, again, it's possible, but this is really, really thick. I checked in the back there. There's a lot of material, a lot of sound deadening material, and a lot of stuff going on there. So if you do that, it's gonna be a lot of digging through. And because this is over here, hard plastic, right? So you mount the speaker, it has a better chance of staying. If you try and do it up here, even if you get through all the sound deadening material, all that foam and stuff that's in there, it's still soft. It's soft touch material. So you put a drill in there, eventually that thing is going to start slipping and coming out. It's like going into styrofoam or something, So I don't recommend it there. If you are looking, and you can't put it here, there's not enough space over here. So that's the only spot you're looking at. But there is going to be some complications. Unless you're putting a small 4-inch speaker and you're running it to an amp and you're prepared to do all the wiring that's involved through here, I wouldn't recommend it. I think, for example, my setup now, I have, if you guys look back there, put flush mounted some clarions at the top, which wasn't an easy task, mind you, because of the way they set up the grills, the factory grills. And then of course, you see I did my flush mounts on there, and then I ran 3 subs and a couple of amps in the back, right? So unless you're doing something a little more complex like that, it may not be, and that sounds great, by the way. It sounds crisp and clear. Everyone loves it. So I wouldn't recommend the work unless you really want to. I don't think it's going to make a huge sound difference, but if you want to, just heed my warnings. It can be done. It's just going to be a little bit tricky, so just take note of that. All right, guys? Now, if you have any questions, make sure you shoot them by to me. I'll make sure to answer whatever I can. Make sure to subscribe, like, leave some comments, the whole bit. All right, guys? All right, don't forget to check out our website, themediapurchaseguide.com. Some interesting info on there as well. All right, so this has been Nexus for TMPG. Take care. Have a good one.